Hi, everyone. Welcome to today's panel. It's my pleasure. My name is Tuka Alhanai, and I'm assistant professor at New York University in engineering. And I'll be moderating today's panel, which is entitled The Impact of Intelligent Machines on the Workforce. We have three wonderful panelists today. First of all, we have Loubna Bouarfa, CEO and founder of OKRA. Our second panelist is Samir Al-Moubayed, CEO of Furhat Robotics. And our third esteemed panelist is Cyril, Kabbara, co-founder of Shark Robotics. And to kick off this panel, I'd love it if each of our panelists can introduce themselves for 1 or 2 minutes, what they do and what their background is. So Cyril, would you like to go first?
Of course. Hello, everybody. I'm pleased to meet you. I'm very pleased to be here with you. So I'm Cyril Kabbara, CEO and co-founder of Shark Robotics. So Shark Robotics is a French company who design and manufacture unmanned ground vehicle designed to protect the man from risk in the field of security, defense, industries, and nuclear. We started the company in 2016. Now we are almost 50. And as an example of our work, we developed the robot named Colossus, which was deployed during the fire of Notre Dame. And now we are the robotics leader for firefighting robots. We deployed more than 20 robots in France, Belgium, Europe, Spain, Italy, and Southeast Asia, of course.
Cyril, Loubna, we'd love to hear what your role is and what your background is.
Thank you, Tuka. I'm so delighted to be here today to discuss some of the pressing questions on the impact of artificial intelligence on the workforce. My name is Loubna, and I'm the founder of Technologies, a leading AI company in the field of sciences. My background myself is not originally in business, but I'm an engineer. As a machine learning engineer, my passion for AI started 14 years ago. I was embarked in a PhD project. Back then, I felt that the shift towards the integration of machine learning in health is not going to be easy, but it never stopped me from my goal in setting up a company in this space. We are working with top 5 companies, 20, and we are using our system to buy and to bring the innovations faster to patients. Entrepreneur aim has always been how can we maximize the impact of this technology, as well as recognizing the business potential of artificial intelligence. I'm particularly interested in the further development use of ethics emerging technologies. I have been a member of the European Union group on AI, advising the European Commission member states how they can implement ethical AI, and I'm a strong advocate for diversity, women, and positive change within the technology sector. So this is particularly important, not only morally, but when we consider the potential of bias within AI, we must also mitigate this through tangible action and progress. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Loubna. Samir, we'd love to hear about you.
Sure. Hi, everyone. This is Samir. I'm a co-founder and the CEO of a Swedish social robotics company called Furhat Robotics, where we kind of build a dream that we had when we were kids, robots that are human-like, and they look kind of like us, and they look alive, and they can interact with us using language. They can see us and analyze our faces, and potentially become a new type of user interface that allows us to interact with technology in a way that is very, very similar to how we interact with each other. You can see our robots today in very early stages. Obviously, this is a very long kind of vision for our industry, but you can see already the robots in airports and schools and some early trials in healthcare and shopping malls and so on. And yeah, looking forward to having him to come.
Thank you all for that wonderful introduction. So we'll kick it off with a question, and we'll spend the next 20 minutes. We will have a hard cut, but we'll spend the next 20 minutes discussing some of these key trends that are happening in the domain of intelligent machines and workforce. So first question to our panelists, there's been a lot of discussion on the impact of intelligent machines, AI on the workforce, both positive and negative. But is the phenomena we are seeing today different from past technological developments? And if it is different, how are the challenges today different? I'd love to, and I think the audience would love to hear some of that. Samir, would you like to go?
Sure. Yeah, this is obviously a very hot topic, and it's very interesting from a philosophical point of view to really discuss the moral aspects and the philosophical aspect. Typically, the big struggle that we have is, for someone that meets one of our robots, is not really that people get scared by how intelligent they are. It's kind of the other way around. People have very high expectations on how intelligent these robots are, and they become disappointed by that the technology hasn't really reached our imagination. So that's kind of the reality if you are working with these technologies, is that they are very predictable and they're very early stage. Very different from maybe how journalists write about them, where it's much more interesting, of course, to talk about the bad scenarios and the very long-term scenarios. But today I think it's mainly about how can we fix the bugs so that we can make this technology a little bit better. But in general, I see a lot of similarity. It's also a very wide spectrum. You have areas where AI is becoming very, very advanced, self-driving cars and so on, areas that we didn't think it would progress this fast. And then we have other areas where it's still very, very early stage, that we can't really even see actually real value today in applying it. It's still very much in research departments. So it's a very wide spectrum, but there are lots of analogies to how any other technology has evolved over time. It's a tool for us to use, like anything else, like a knife and fire. We as a society get to decide, do we want to use this in certain areas? Do we want to restrict using it in other areas? And the fact, of course, that humanity is and has been talking about this now for years is a good sign that eventually we will end up being prepared with good moral system on how to use it when this technology becomes really that influential. But that's how I feel where the conversation is today.
Loubna, Cyril, do you have any additional to add? We'd love to hear your thoughts.
Sure. When I'm, I work in a very regulated, compliant industry, and that is the healthcare, the life industry. And when I'm talking about the role of AI and the fourth industrial revolution, moving from the third IT systems, third generation, to this new fourth revolution with data-driven AI, I always tell them we are at the age of similar flag acts back in 1965. What was that? Was when we moved from horse carriages to road vehicles. What happened? The Flag Act came that road vehicle had to be preceded by a person walking at least 60 meters. Flag. So there was a person walking in front of the car. And it took 30 years before we took it in front of the car. So it's really hard for us humanity, to change, especially in places where it is very critical, like in healthcare, and many industries, where the applications of AI, when it is on low level, for example, on sensor processing, on network optimization, where there is not ethical questions around human life, around fairness, and it's easy. When it comes to that there's a human being in play, then it's very, very difficult. That's why I think it's really important that to put the ethical requirements in the center when developing AI, and the implementation of trustworthy AI needs to kind of a framework, and we need, I think, us and innovators, we can embrace that early on and not be scared of bureaucracy with that. So AI is something that is just, I think it's staying here, already here, and I know there are concerns of impacts on the workforce that we need to in our workforce 4 times generation is not what we used to in the industrial revolutions. However, what we are already seeing in support roles for technology, data analysis, research with a large number of businesses, highly skilled people, technical jobs, even new types where human machine in an orchestrated fashion, jobs that are automated. There's no way around it that we keep it. We need to upskill people, and we need to because many human skills we're far ahead that we fit into a machine. So let's use the emotional intelligence of, let's use the human strengths in those jobs, and things that can be automated with AI. Let's speed that up and not be scared of that.
Cyril, do you have anything additional thoughts to add to that?
Yes, this is a very good question, and I mean, globally, this question bring all of fantasy and deviance when you speak about robotics plus AI, because for our point of view, for example, when we started in 2016, we were developing a machine, I mean, a robot to help firefighters in their environment. And the first thing that people usually think is, hey, this robot could take my job, or does that mean I will be replaced in the future by a machine? So this is the first thought. So from the Shark Robotics view, we think that the human need to stay at the heart of the decision-making loop. I mean, there is a brilliant study from the MIT showing that a human-robot collaboration is way more productive than a human alone or a robot working alone. So for us, the collaboration is the key, especially if you work in the field of security, firefighting, defense industry, because you work in the field where the human experience plays an important role. And for example, a firefighter know in case of fire in building, if he need to go left, go right, save this life first. And like Samir mentioned it, we are at the beginning of the AI. For example, it's doable to do it when you play in a conforming environment. For example, you ask a robot to move alone from a point A to a point B, like for example in a warehouse. The environment stay the same, so it's easy. Now you go on the street with a robot and ask him to go alone from a point A to a point B. You have an infinite combination of variables, so it's way more complex to do it in a real life. And now imagine in an environment with fire, you need a man or a woman to take this decision. So for us, this is the key, to have an important collaboration between the man and the machine.
Fantastic. So I think that touches on the sort of the next question that I'd like to hear from the panelists discuss, which is, you know, you've touched on working together, human machines working together, the philosophical or ethical implications of, you know, some of these technologies, things related to empowering women and other minorities or disenfranchised communities. Is there some specific sort of action points or strategies that you think, and you may have somewhat touched on it, but I'd love if we could go in deeper. So strategies to mitigate some of the negative effects of intelligent machines on the workforce, you know, biasing AI and things like that. And how can we go about, you know, promoting positive outcomes, or at least within the roles or greater society? Would you like to jump?
Yes, very, of course, wide topic. I think probably companies have some tools to deploy to try to help with this, of course, issue, but need to be done on a government level that really plan long term. So, like Loubna mentioned, education and making sure that first the people currently in their jobs understand the state of the technology. Also, people that are learning understand where, what are these new things that they need to learn to adapt to the next, similar to other industrial revolutions. What are the things that governments need to deploy on a national or international level to make sure that we have the skills that we need, that people are informed about the right things. We have programs to help people that are falling behind and so on. But also, of course, companies need to, at least as soon as they mature a little bit, after the early startup phase, it would probably be healthy to invest some time and resources into an ethics, at least strategy, an ethics strategy of, okay, just let's identify these areas where we might be, if our technology gets used in the wrong way, how could this impact certain populations, whether they are kids or they are public data or the elderly, or if it's in healthcare and so on. And then that would be really the first step, is really having an honest, transparent view of what's the worst case scenario, and do we have a strategy on how to address that, and do we need help from other companies, or do we need help from the government, or do we need to teach our employees new tools so that they understand that the databases they're using maybe are not very secure, or just very basic things to very much kind of national level education programs. And I see a lot of things really happening in this space, of course. But yeah, I don't know, Cyril, if you had.
Yeah, that's a great point, partnership between government and the private sector. So it sounds like the private sector can't sort of solve all these problems on their own. Loubna, how do you see, especially because you're in the thick of it in healthcare, how do you see, strategies for mitigating some of these negative effects of, these technological systems?
I think first of all, I want to mention that we live in a very, very special moment. In 2020, the inflection point of that world is changed completely. Like, to give you an example, in my industry, we used to take 10 years to develop clinical vaccines, to finish clinical trials of vaccines. It took us 10 months. So we're forced to change. It's not like we have the luxury time to see if we adopt AI. No, we are forced to use algorithms to predict the uncertainty that this world is increasing. What does this mean? I see a few points pushing us towards need to move, because the way we've been, we had dysfunctional systems. We're living in dysfunctional systems dominated by bureaucracy, and it's been bad for the workforce, bad for the environment, for many things. And if you look to the consumer market moves much fast. The millennials, how we grew up, we use Uber in no time. We have taxi, Airbnb, all platforms. We don't have we have change now. So, but in order to mitigate this and maximize the benefits, I think one thing for sure to look at, see that we are all living across this inflection point. What the good thing is, what we are moving to this outcome-driven economy. What does this mean? That we are moving to a circular economy, which is much better for the environment, better for the outcomes. And to mitigate risk, OKRA, for example, because we're with patient data, and we're using AI to maximize patients' outcomes, which is within the outcome-driven economy, we implement many control layers. So first of all, the data needs to be according to the GDPR, and that's Europe, identifiable. We protect the privacy. And we have 7 requirements that we define in the ethical guidelines of the European Commission. If you don't want to use the European Commission guidelines, there is the OECD guidelines, there is the World Economic Forum guidelines. They all share the same criteria. So there are a number of things. For example, bias controls, dealing with data coming from about people. We have techniques how to deal with that. We balance data beforehand. We make sure that we have a multidisciplinary team handling the data, and that reduces the bias dramatically. It never eliminates it, because that's the world. We are biased human beings. The good thing about AI that we are exposed to it. We can measure it. We can work on it to reduce it. Explainability is another important topic in healthcare. As an evidence-based industry, similar to education, similar to many other industries, we need to explain. Therefore, these algorithms allow explainability to happen and provide real explanation why it makes certain things. That's how we empower people and pass them when we implement AI into our business. And last but not least, there are many other things, like, for example, to test, even as a small business, to test our systems and make sure they are not biased and they are working properly. Put red teams in your company that are trying to challenge the AI system, trying to see what is where does it make biased decisions, where does it make had high error set, and to keep doing that. It's a lot of testing and iterating. But I will my contribute that very special. Lucky to be here and living this phenomenal change happening, and very lucky to be part of this revolution.
Thank you, Loubna. Very specific solutions, iterative and technical, algorithmic solutions to solve algorithmic problems. I think in the last 2 minutes that we have, I would just like to close up the discussion by, if each panelist could think of one word they think captures the future of this domain, intelligent machines on workforce. It would be lovely to hear that one word that they think captures our discussion today and what they see the future to be. Cyril, can we start with you? Do you have one word to capture what it is you see the future to be?
Yes, of course. The word is innovative. Of course, I can explain why. So Samir and Loubna mentioned everything about ethics. It's very important. It's very, very important to continue and to build the future, because the robotics and AI is involved in different fields, and it's very important to keep ethics and a common goal to create a better world. And humans don't want to be ejected from the party. So just to close that, it's very important to keep international regulation with AI and robotics and keep the man in loop. But from these words, to summarize this intervention, yeah, we have to be innovative to stay, in the run compared to all the robotics company, the US and the competition, and the field is growing fast, very fast. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Cyril. Samir, do you have one word to capture in the last 30 seconds or so, how you see the future?
Yeah, it's tough to have one word, but I feel very excited, to be honest. I feel quite excited about humanity in general. I think a lot of these technologies are driving us towards a deeper understanding of humanity, more than about, not only about technology. We ask a lot of questions that are very much about, what's our purpose? Why are we here? What makes us special? How are we different from robots? What are the rules that govern our life? And this is a very kind of a growth driving period. So I feel quite excited about that.
Awesome, fantastic. And Loubna, in the last few seconds, do you have one word?
I would say people, empower them and not bypass them with this technology. And let's use this technology for a better future for our children, to protect the planet, to create relevant jobs, and to make an environment where people can thrive. That's what I think.
Thank you so much. So innovation, excitement, and people. Those are the three things that I feel really do capture this discussion today. And so with that, I'd like to thank our panelists for their time, and especially during this busy time and the schedules that they have. Really appreciate their participation and the golden nuggets of thoughts that they shared with us.